Okay, by request, as I mentioned in last month's or last 6 months videos, is we had requests for fix-it videos rather than just working on files that are okay. So I pulled out this file because there's a lot of fixing that needs to be done in this photograph. The reason being is that this was shot when the sun was on their face directly. There was a cloud before, but the sun peeked out from behind the cloud and just made this photo go, ah, really not very nice. So I love the frame, and this is a favorite shoot of mine, and it's from years ago. And I've edited one of this sweet little girl before. In the hat, a close up a couple of years ago for the videos. But this is with her sister. So I'm going to edit it and we'll see where we can go with it. First things first, though, I need to bring back as much detail as I can. I mean, we've just got so much harshness in here. Look at this, it's very harsh all the way through here. So what I'm going to do is lower that exposure right down, and I already prefer it. I'm just looking at that going, I much prefer that already. So also the oranges, I'm going to reduce those down a little bit, but I might raise the luminance a bit. So we're going to kind of have fun with this photograph and do some stuff that I haven't really done before with you as well. So let's go down to the blues and see what we can do with those blues. Now, keeping in mind that this is aqua, it's only going to take the top part of the sky. If we go to the blues, I don't particularly want to make those more blue. In fact, I kind of want to make them darker and more desaturated. So let's see. So I'm doing a big mix of both, where I'm really bringing that down. And I actually am liking this sky too and what it's doing here. Okay, so basically we've brought back so much detail in that photograph already. I so much prefer it. But let's have a look to see what it's done to the file. It's made it slightly out of focus by doing that. I mean, it's not so good for the file. I'm going to bring that back up again slightly because I don't really I prefer it to be in pretty good detail, in pretty good shape, I should say. Alright. Let's just see if I can lower this down. What happens? So I've got the tonal curves, and I'm digging what it's doing here to her arm. Really liking that contrast that's coming out, but I'm not liking what it's doing. It's the face. Okay. Alright. Okay, so I mean, seriously, all I need to do here is bring up those whites, I think, and I'd kind of be happy with that. That's too much. But, so maybe it's not the whites, but I like what that has done to the shirt, not to the background so much. So let's see, bringing up the highlights just does the background. So we could bring down those highlights to put that detail back in the background. And I think what we're going to have to do is take it into Photoshop to bring those highlights back up. So keeping that in mind, I don't really want to do too much with the brush, but I might just lighten up their faces a little and the arm and put some detail back in this part of the boat. Let's just see what we can do with their faces too. So their faces comparatively to the arm, orange. So maybe some blue, maybe some magenta here. Okay, some magenta. Alright. And now another brush, and I might just bring in some contrast here along this boat and the plane in which they're sitting. There we go, so it was the opposite of. Okay. Just wanted to be able to see it more. Okay. Now, if I bring in a vignette, let's have a look on what that does. Liking that a lot more. So that's the feather. Alright, the only thing that I'm really not liking is their skin tones at this stage. But keeping in mind that I'm not going for picture perfect skin tones here, I'm really trying to go for a feel within the image. I'm not trying to go for out of camera kind of gorgeous, silky, smooth skin portrait work. I'm just trying to get a feel. Just add a little bit here to this boat. Okay. Now again, I'm really not digging what's happening to their skin tones here. It might be a case of having to take that into Photoshop. Okay. So over here, I wish there was a little bit of a glow to match the other side, so I might even just kind of gently put that in without making it too obvious, just very slightly. And lighten up that plane in which they're on again too. Alright, so now I'm going to take that into Photoshop. So here we are in Photoshop, and I'm already really actually digging this photograph, and I wish I'd edited it all those years ago like this. It's funny going back and seeing things with a fresh eye. I do like things a little bit darker now than I used to, I guess, and yeah, I really like this photograph. So now what I want to do, however, is add a gradient map. So I've gone into the masks and I'm going to add a gradient map and go down into the color, and I'd like to make that kind of a warm brown but quite deep, and I'm going to leave the other side white and press OK, and then I'm going to go on to multiply and see what that does, and then go to soft light and see what that does. Now soft light, I'm liking what it does to their skin and the tones there, but I think it's going to be multiply for me, or maybe even overlay. Let's have a look what overlay does. So basically it's just making them more contrasty in the areas that I want it to be. Okay. So I'm going to leave that on overlay, and I'm going to just gently raise that back on her eyes. As I said, it's not about the portrait so much here, it's about the feel. So I don't need to really see her eyes, but I'm just bringing that back a little bit so that you can, just a touch. Okay, and the highlights here, I'm going to paint them back on her arms, but I'm digging what it does to all the other highlights. So I could just go in now. The only thing I'm not sure about is this sky. I don't particularly want that to be, apart from the clouds, I don't mind the clouds coming out, but I don't want the rest of the sky to be more poppy. So I'm just masking that back. Okay. And might bring some detail back just here gently as well, so that you can see where they're sitting. Okay, and their faces here. Alright. That's made them darker around them a little. So now I want to do some paint work, and I wish that I was on the Wacom at the moment, but never mind. So I'm just going to go into curves. My daughter and I share the Wacom. We've got a Syntac, and she enjoys drawing, so I won't ask her to hop off because I love it when she draws. Okay, so here we go. So I'm just going to do it the old-fashioned way. Now, I've just raised the curves there because I'm going to go in here and paint a little. So I'm going to go Control I, and with a white brush, I'm going to just go in and do a little bit of paint work on areas. Now, bear with me because I don't particularly want to keep it like this. It's just the start of where I'm going. Okay. So that's the clothes. Now I wouldn't mind bringing out some of the detail on this boat a little, and maybe on their skin a touch where there are highlights. See, they've got highlights. She's got a highlight here and a highlight here. And here. Made a little bit of a mistake here, but like I said, we're not going for perfection here at the moment. It's just to give you an idea. All right. So there we go. So now I've made them pop out more, a lot more actually, and I'm just going to reduce that down a little. There we go. So I'm going to fit on screen so you can see that. Okay, so now they're kind of going more chromy, which is a look that I'm really liking at the moment. Much better. And I'm just going to reduce that overlay down a little more. Okay, while I'm here, I would like to crop this to a 5:7 ratio simply because I need to center them more. So I'm just going to leave the DPI to fall. Okay. So I'm going to pop them in the center and crop there. And duplicate the background layer, shift to select them all, Control Alt E, because I would like to do some patchwork here now and take this house out. I mean, we could just grab another area, but I don't think it's going to work. So we have to go the old-fashioned way, which is a little bit of cloning. Okay. And now I'm just going to grab the lasso tool and grab this area here. Edit, copy, edit, paste. Now I need to match it so that it's hitting some of the flowers, the leaves there. They're not flowers or leaves, are they? Grass. That is what I meant. and then, okay, so I've darkened that, and now I'm going to add a color balance. All right. So now I just have to kind of erase that off to taste. You probably should use a mask, but I don't think that necessarily looks like I've done that if you hadn't known that I'd done that. We'll just leave it like that. There's a little bit more fiddling that I could do, but it gets rid of it. Okay, so now I'm looking at thinking, I wish I'd fiddled for more. I'll just patch that in. Anyway, you get the point, hey. So when I'm looking at images like this, I like things to be symmetrical. So over on this side it is lighter than this side. So now I'm just going to darken that side up. I'm completely playing. This series of videos really has been about playing. So, okay, so now I just need to make it more consistent. So I'm going to go in and make a photo filter. Now this is really just a taste, and I'm going to erase that back very slightly on them. So that is a photo filter, and it's warming the image up. Okay, so now that I've got a base, I know that if I am going to blend these colors in, then what it should do is keep the colors more consistent within that blending. So I'd actually like to see again, and I've used this trick before, what Photoshop thinks that the colors should be. So I'm grabbing all the layers and I'm Control Alt E and I'm merging them, and I'll make a new layer and I'll go image auto tone to begin with, and I don't mind that at all actually. It's more realistic, and auto color, and I think I prefer that one. Just keeps the oranges in a little. Okay, but it keeps the sky up too. So you can also duplicate the layer, and if you find that Photoshop does come up with a color that you like, so auto, was it the tone that was very blue? You can actually blend the two in the areas that you like, for example. Alright, so I'm kind of happy with that, especially since where we came from. So I'm just going to fix the skin a little now. So I'll just lasso, and like I said, this isn't supposed to be picture perfect skin tones though, but I just want to make it a little less yellow. I'm happy with the contrast. I was trying to get this contrast up in the whites in Lightroom and it wasn't happening for me, so it's really great that we've been able to bring that out in Photoshop. So I'm going to go into color balance and just add some blues in there and some reds maybe. I think that's a bit better. This one again, it's too red though, so let's lasso it, color balance, and go the opposite. That's green. Okay. And here, still a little too yellow. Make a smaller feather. Now, with an image like this, really you could be playing for days, because this is more, you could add textures in. We might do that just so you can see. I mean, you could be working on this because it's that kind of feel. It's not supposed to be, neither is here. I'm having skin tone issues. Now, I just go off eye, by the way. I just look at it and go, no, that's not right. There's no science behind it, I find, other than our eye. Okay. I think I'm trying to balance too many areas up. And it's just not happening for me. Might saturate that a little. Okay. So, now, speaking of saturation, what does saturation do for the image? There we go. Quite like that. Okay, so I've added in a little bit of saturation. Alright, so now what I want to do is just grab this area here and do a hue saturation and desaturate that a little, I think. Seems to be a lot of yellow there that's unnecessary. Okay. So let's see about adding a texture to it. Okay, so I've got a texture here and I'll pop it into the with the video so that you can have it yourself, and I'm just going to drag it on. Now, you know, like this is just a very, very old texture of mine that I think it's concrete, and I've just colored it blue. So I'm going to press apply. So I've free transformed that to stretch its picture, basically. And I'm going to put that on multiply, and it goes really, really awful. And I'll reduce that down. And all I'm going to do is just desaturate it. Okay, but not all the way. And now I'm going to make that a mask. And be careful when you do a texture, because it actually does it on the skin. So that might be the taste for you. I'm just going to erase it off though and bring them back a bit. Now, only on the areas that I really want them to come out though. So I'm just thinking, really, that's too much. But I'm enjoying the depth of that now. So I might go back and merge those ones underneath. I've merged it together now, haven't I? Let me do that again. So I'm going to grab them. The reason I'm merging them is because I want to have a layer to work with. Here we go. I'm going to actually darken that. Under here. Especially, there we go. So that now when I do bring this back, it won't hopefully pop out too much. Okay. So now I'm going to reduce the opacity of that down. Okay. And just give it a plane that it's sitting on. Okay. I'm just trying to figure out how I want it to be. I think the darker I go, the happier I am with it. I know it's really, really dark. And again, this is just playing. It's not for everyone. Okay. Okay, last but not least, enough playing now. I'm going to lighten and add a little bit of contrast. Just to bring them back into detail there. Alright, so like I said, we could go on and on and on with that. So this is just an example of something that you can do if you so wish. And it's supposed to be dark and a little bit mysterious. So I'm going to go back to the original file. Voila. So that's why I've made it dark too, to show you the capabilities that I guess Lightroom and Photoshop do have. But like I said, be careful with making errors like this because whilst you can bring it back, it's not so great for the file. But it goes to show that you can actually do so much.